the Yu Menglong case has reportedly reached 60 billion global views, marking the most widely followed unresolved death investigation in recent Chinese history. And the figure is ridiculous, almost strange, yet it reveals a collective fascination that has extended well beyond a single catastrophe. It has evolved into a phenomena defined by unsolved questions, political quiet, and a timeframe that tightens like a closing fist. As the official deadline set by China's legal system approaches, millions of people await a single judgment from the Chaoyang District Police, which might determine whether this matter is brought to full court attention or is quietly sealed away. The tension is apparent. It pervades every post, every voice message, and every attempt by ordinary individuals to seek clarity where none has been provided. At the heart of this unfolding tale is a single figure: Yu Menglong's mother. Her very presence has become a subtle kind of resistance. For weeks, some believed she had disappeared, been silenced, or worse. However, the most recent indications suggest she is safe, being properly monitored, but still present. In a system where public disclosure can have unforeseeable effects, her silence serves as both a shield and a burden. Her next action, even if it's just one sentence, has the potential to influence the national debate. Along with her, a distinct voice has emerged. Unafraid of the consequences, a woman in Beijing repeatedly dialed the government hotline, her tone firm and her inquiries exact. She questions the constitutionality of the Chaoyang police response with the assurance of someone who realizes that the truth must be communicated clearly, even when power systems oppose it. Her drive reverberates across the country, borne by people who recognize in her words the frustration they cannot safely voice. However, the quiet is not restricted to citizens. Anomalies have emerged at the highest levels of political authority. Two strong people, long regarded as protecting umbrellas for those connected in the case, have been missing from significant state events for unknown reasons. Their abrupt disappearances cast a shadow over the unfolding events. It's unclear if these absences are deliberate, punitive, or simply coincidental, but their timing has fueled conjecture that the ground beneath China's political machinery is shifting. Every part of this story comes together here, at the crossroads of a moment that might shape a nation's attention. The unsolved questions, legal deadlines, unexpected silences, and growing voices all point to a deeper mechanism that must be examined with clarity and accuracy. But beyond the glitz and excuses, what factors are driving this crisis? We will examine every detail, from the first missteps to the lasting damage, to understand how the entertainment industry works and how a symbol is reinvented. The first layer of this emerging dilemma is the inflexible structure of the legal timeframe, which has now become the focus of national and international attention. According to China's policing protocols, the Chaoyang District Police have up to 63 days to decide whether to submit an official complaint. This countdown began on September 21st, when the first public notice was released. As a result, the 23rd of November is the deadline for authorities to decide whether Yu Menglong's death should be investigated formally. Once this deadline has passed, the system proceeds to the next round, regardless of whether the family has spoken publicly. It is a process designed to appear methodical, but in this case, it has become a symbol of uncertainty, reluctance, and institutional opacity. Behind this timeline is a disturbing silence. More than 60 days have elapsed, and what should have been a simple procedural judgment has become a contentious national discussion. Experts familiar with Chinese administrative processes have warned that the longer a matter goes unresolved, the more likely it is that the authorities may refuse to file it. This potential puts a pall over the final days leading up to the judgment, creating an environment in which people, observers, and legal academics try to analyze each minor movement from official departments, looking for signs of intent. If the police eventually reject to open a case, the procedure requires a series of appeals. First, the family can file an administrative complaint within 7 days. If the complaint is dismissed, they may file a complaint with the procuratorate between December 25th and December 31st. If that option fails, the last step is to escalate the request to a higher-level procuratorate after January 5th. These ascending stages reveal a framework that appears to provide several chances for oversight, but in actuality, frequently places an enormous load on families that are already at a disadvantage. Navigating these processes would be nearly impossible for Yu Menglong's mother, who is reportedly under heavy observation and has no open contact channels. The central conflict in this case is the contradiction between legal procedure and public expectation. Citizens both inside and outside China insist that the process prioritizes evidence above controlled narratives or selective disclosures. According to the legislation, the outcome is fully dependent on objective evidence: original film, unedited CCTV, on-site reports, autopsy conclusions, witness accounts, and forensic comparisons. These aspects form the basis of judicial truth, regardless of the family's ability to appear in public or interact with the media. The authorities have yet to share, explain, or acknowledge any of these key materials, which has caused frustration. The lack of basic transparency breeds suspicion, particularly in a society where disinformation is swiftly punished, while official silence prolongs doubt. Yu Menglong's mother's modest resilience lies at the heart of this legal tempest. Her existence, or rather her limited visibility, has become a symbol of the disparity between institutional power and regular folk. Some thought she had been silenced or taken away, but subsequent clues from public people suggest she may still be safe, albeit tightly monitored. Her voice, if heard publicly, may change the course of the case, not because the system requires her testimony at this point, but because her presence would communicate that she still has agency, freedom, and the power to claim her rights. In a time when the law and the people are in a state of suspended animation, her mere existence serves as a precarious anchor point. This is where the emotional essence of the dilemma emerges, the concern that procedural deadlines will trump the quest for truth. Evidence that should have been investigated right away could decay, be lost, or become inaccessible. Information that should have been shared could remain hidden indefinitely. Each passing day without clarity appears to tighten the grip of uncertainty, prompting the public to wonder whether the quiet is intentional or simply institutional indifference. The system's glacial progress contrasts sharply with the sense of urgency felt by millions of observers who believe that every hour counts. As the closing days draw near, one thing becomes clear: the foundation of this catastrophe is not the removal of proof, but the disappearance of trust. The question now is not whether the law allows a case to be filed, but if the institutions responsible for justice will carry out their declared duties. The countdown continues, and the pressure builds, carrying the weight of a decision that might shape the entire story. The second wave of this emerging crisis stems not from legal documents or procedural deadlines, but from sudden upheaval in China's political arena. As public pressure grows, two strong personalities long thought to be shielding the individuals involved in the Yu Menglong case have began to exhibit oddities that cannot be ignored. Their unexplained absences are not mentioned in public releases, but they have become a prominent subject of conjecture as onlookers try to figure out whether the shifting internal landscape will change the outcome of the probe. The first figure, Kei Qi, wields enormous power as a Politburo Standing Committee member and director of the Chinese Communist Party's General Office. This office is frequently compared to the inner sanctum of imperial power in modern Chinese governance architecture, as it is tasked with managing confidential issues and acting as a direct extension of top leadership. Kei Qi has long been regarded as the central compound's second most powerful member, and he is almost always present at key occasions. However, in November, a pattern formed that attracted rapid attention. Kai Ka was absent on November 9th, when Xi Jinping attended the inauguration of a major military conference in Guangzhou, despite accompanying the group to Guangdong. He went missing again days later, while visiting with the King of Spain and the King of Thailand. These recurrent absences from high-profile events, all occurring in a short period of time, represent a significant shift from his past prominence. For someone of his standing, such a disappearance cannot be disregarded as a coincidence. The silence surrounding his location has created an information void, which the public has filled with theories, inquiries, and warnings of internal instability. It is unclear whether his absence is due to political reshuffle, disciplinary pressure, or health issues, but it coincides uncomfortably with the escalating scandal over the Yu Menglong case. The second figure, Wang Xiaohong, China's Minister of Public Security, paints an equally disturbing image. He disappeared from public view for 9 days in a row, sparking widespread curiosity, especially because several of his close acquaintances had recently been investigated. These individuals include key players in the policing and administrative systems, like as former Beijing police commander Qi Yanjun and vice ministers Xu Ganlu, Chen Xiyuan, and Sun Maoli. The most notable occurrence, however, was the unexpected death of Dong Yijun, Wang's close secretary during his stay in Beijing. The Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission delayed information about his death for 25 days before announcing it. Such secrecy simply fueled public suspicions. Observers have seen parallels with the collapse of former security head Zhou Yongkang, whose network was dismantled piece by piece before his own probe was revealed. The phrase, "pluck the feathers before capturing the bird," reappeared when analysts observed the similar pattern. Subordinates were eliminated first, followed by possible scrutiny of the figure in the center. Rumors of military intervention exacerbated tensions, as did accusations of an inside warning that the later it gets, the harsher it will be. In this combustible milieu, every movement, or lack thereof, by senior officials is viewed as a potential indicator of shifting control. This political turbulence is directly related to the public's dissatisfaction about the handling of the Yu Menglong issue. When the heads of China's most powerful law enforcement agencies vanish, citizens naturally wonder if it is due to internal dispute, disciplinary probes, or strategic disengagement. Each option poses the same fundamental question: can the institutions in charge of justice remain unbiased during times of political uncertainty? The silence of these powerful persons exacerbates the sense of instability. At the same time, the media avalanche spread to an unexpected area with the case of Yu Wenhong, the founder of Yu Beauty International in Hong Kong. TikTok unexpectedly banned her account, alleging repeated insults to public personalities as the reason. However, these alleged crimes occurred in 2023, generating significant concerns about why the punishment was implemented 2 years later. Her more recent statements, however, have ventured into claims involving rejuvenation technology, protein extraction from young men aged 17 to 21, and even a supposed immortality injection. These comments created a storm of speculation that touched on sensitive networks of influence, prompting authorities to issue warnings accusing her of exploiting state-related secrets for online attention. Her unexpected silence paralleled the deletion of posts, videos, and voices advocating for justice in the Yu Menglong case. These changes collectively paint a picture of an unstable media world. The public watches as powerful political figures disappear, business leaders are silenced, and platforms tighten control over debates. Each disappearance, erasure, and inexplicable absence adds to the signal in a system with little transparency. As the political climate heats up, the investigation's destiny appears to be increasingly dependent on forces far outside the evidence itself. The issue silently emerges. In a moment when power is moving, who will decide the case's eventual outcome? In the last stretch of this escalating story, the most forceful surge does not come from official departments or high-ranking politicians. It comes from a regular person, a woman in Beijing whose willpower has broken through the barriers of quiet. Her voice, recorded during her third call to the government hotline, was rare and uncompromisingly clear. She talked with the accuracy of someone who has grown weary of the absence of truth. Her questioning remained focused. They struck right to the heart of the debate, pushing listeners to confront what many had felt but couldn't describe. She began by questioning if the government hotline ever held internal meetings to address public issues. Her tone was measured, calm, and tinged with displeasure. She persisted, asking to know if city executives were aware of the situation and whether they had chosen to disregard obvious contradictions. Her statements matched the sentiments of numerous others, that the authorities had repeatedly provided hollow responses for more than 2 months, with no explanation for the exceptional delays and omissions. Her comments grew sharper rapidly. She emphasized the extraordinary detail that the studio affiliated with Yu Menglong had already been deregistered on September 11th, yet had released a statement denying criminal suspicion 10 days before the police. This, she claimed, broke legal boundaries and jeopardized the integrity of official proceedings. She questioned how a deregistered entity could speak on behalf of law enforcement or have information that the Public Security Bureau had not released. Each query delved deeper into the discrepancies surrounding the case. She went on to wonder why the Chaoyang police were able to ascertain the cause of death in hours, yet required 10 days to issue an official notice. This delay, she argued, allowed rumors to grow unchecked, only for officials to arrest 3 residents later for allegedly spreading the same rumors. She presented her thesis with a dramatic rhetorical contrast: fast speed in reaching a judgment, but stunning slowness in addressing public accountability. In her opinion, this discrepancy suggested either institutional indifference or an intentional attempt to dominate the narrative. Her most forceful claims centered on missing evidence. She asked, one by one, why the authorities had not given basic, critical information such as the time of the fall, the exact location, the victim's activities, the trajectory analysis, and the autopsy results. These information are standard components of any transparent investigation, and their absence gave the impression that critical material was either insufficient or deliberately concealed. Her repeated phrasing of the same questions, the landlord, 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 and the watch, 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 lent her remarks a hurried cadence, emphasizing the gravity of her suspicions. She believed that the public had a right to know and a right to monitor, particularly in cases that drew national attention. Her call culminated in a moment that bore the weight of the entire crisis. She declared unequivocally that if supervisory bodies continued to disregard public outcry, despite knowing the facts, the public would be forced to believe the presence of powerful protective umbrellas shielding someone from accountability. Her declaration was not dramatic. It was founded on the logical conclusion that extended quiet is incompatible with genuine sincerity. She ended with an appeal to justice, requesting that the case be reconsidered and that justice be restored to the late artist Yu Menglong. This moment served as the narrative's emotional conclusion. Her words traveled quickly, expressing a communal rage that had been simmering for weeks. She embodied the opinion of millions who believed that the institutions in charge of justice had strayed too far from their responsibilities. Her courage was bolstered by the very atmosphere that attempted to repress it. Every deleted post, restricted remark, and shuttered account emphasized the importance of her unwillingness to remain silent. However, even as her voice resonated, tiny signals indicated that the political landscape beneath the surface was changing. The unexplained absences of high-level officials, the escalating inquiries into their friends, and the rising tensions within the security system suggested that internal forces were preparing for a new phase. It was uncertain if these developments would eventually have an impact on the legal processing of the case, but they added a new dimension to the evolving drama, one driven not only by popular outrage, but also by power instability. As these factors converge, the story approaches a point where the next official step is extremely significant. The system is at a crossroads. The public is waiting. The institutions maintain their silence. It is unclear whether the evolving political situation will eventually compel an official breakthrough, but the next move might redefine everything. After weeks of unresolved questions, inexplicable disappearances, and an increasing chorus of public demands, Yu Menglong's story has evolved into something much broader than an individual tragedy. It has become a metaphor, a mirror that reflects the delicate architecture of trust between institutions and the people who rely upon them. As the last deadline approaches, the country finds itself in a rare state of collective expectancy, waiting to see if the system will respond with transparency or retreat farther into quiet. The emotional impact of a young life lost is not the only resonance in this case. The profound ramifications of the surrounding conditions are also significant. Citizens who once felt removed from the mechanics of governance are now caught up in a complex web of legal words, procedural timetables, and political currents. Their participation indicates that justice, even when distant or unknown, possesses the ability to drive ordinary people to speak, question, and persist. This insistence on accountability has converted the story from a private sorrow to a public call for structural integrity. The number of unresolved questions continues to grow, each one highlighting the gap between official claims and popular expectations. Why were key details withheld? Why was a deregistered studio allowed to speak in the presence of police enforcement? Why were voices advocating for clarity muted while contradictions went unaddressed? These information gaps have become the source of irritation, fostering mistrust in the lack of clear communication. In such a setting, silence becomes a tremendous force, molding perceptions more effectively than any formal declaration. Despite this uncertainty, a quiet strength has formed among those who refuse to let the story fade. The bravery of a single caller facing the Beijing hotline has prompted others to continue inquiring. The persistence of supporters from many places, exchanging information despite hurdles, has kept the conversation going. These individuals, bound not by power but by conviction, have made certain that the case is not forgotten or overshadowed. Their commitment has resulted in a type of community vigilance that extends far beyond the confines of any digital platform. This collaborative energy reflects a deeper truth. The pursuit of justice is not limited to institutions. It belongs to everyone who believes that fairness should not be selective, that transparency should not be a privilege, and that the worth of a human life cannot be diminished by quiet or delay. Whether or not the establishment chooses to recognize these voices, they have already altered the public mind. The case has served as a reminder that, when called upon, justice requires not only evidence and procedure, but also integrity and guts. As the deadline approaches, all remains is a sense of calm before imminent change. The public waits for the next official action to reaffirm or weaken their faith. The institutions, silent but apparent, bear the weight of expectations. The mood is tense but undeniably alive, with a sense that a watershed moment is on the horizon. In this tense period, one reality becomes clear. The conclusion of the Yu Menglong case will reverberate well beyond the confines of the investigation itself. It will have an impact on how individuals view their relationship with power, how they perceive fairness, and how they judge the gap between promises and actions. The ultimate verdict may come sooner than expected, and it might have far-reaching consequences beyond this particular case.